Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. So here's a question for you today. In a world, totally dominated by code and the cloud, can just one company, we're talking about the AI giant NVIDIA, can it really pull America's high-tech economy back to building things with steel, silicon, and substations? That's what we're digging into. These really bold claims, sometimes pretty political, about AI-driven reindustrialization happening right now. But we want to hold those promises up against, the messy stuff. Global supply chains, domestic politics.
Yeah, it's really crucial. We look past the big headlines, the massive valuations. The real question we're tackling is whether the AI industry, with Jensen Huang and NVIDIA at the front, is actually sparking structural change in U.S. manufacturing.
Right.
Or is it more like, symbolic milestones, maybe just strategic political theater to get some corporate leverage? We need to figure out what's real progress and what's just performance.
Okay, let's unpack that whole narrative, because it really starts with a person, doesn't it? Not a chip. It starts with Jensen Huang himself. From busboy at Denny's to arguably maybe the most powerful tech player in politics right now, he seems to be fully embracing the current administration.
Oh, it's quite the transformation, quite the political glow-up, you could say. You saw that huge Washington event he held.
Yeah.
The keynote speech was just full of praise for the administration's economic plans. He even personally chipped in for a new White House ballroom. And the timing. Wow, the day after all that, NVIDIA hits that $5 trillion valuation. That kind of political capital, you don't spend that by accident.
No, definitely not. And this mutual embrace, it feels very calculated. So for the administration, okay, they get this massive corporate stamp of approval. It signals, hey, the private sector is on board with reindustrialize America. But what's in it for NVIDIA, really, beyond the good PR?
It's all about leverage. 100%. And that leverage points straight towards the market where they stand to lose potentially trillions.
Yeah.
China.
Ah.
Huang has been pretty open about wanting to sell versions of his top chips, like the new Blackwell series, into China. It's a massive market. So by getting close to power in D.C., he's in a much better spot to influence those really critical export controls.
The ones that decide if that market stays open or just slams shut.
Exactly. They're trying to manage a huge political risk before it blows up.
Okay, but this political stuff, it needs to translate into actual steel and silicon on the ground. Otherwise, it's just talk. And that takes us to the first sort of tangible thing they can point to. Celebrating that first Blackwell wafer made in Arizona by TSMC.
Right.
That was, 9 months after the administration asked for this kind of reshoring?
And that is a meaningful step, let's be clear. It's progress towards diversifying the supply chain. The promise, the big picture goal, is that the whole Blackwell stack, the processors, the memory, eventually the advanced packaging too, will soon be made in America.
Soon being the operative word, maybe.
Well, yeah. We celebrate the wafer, but we have to remember this kind of production moves at a glacial pace. It takes years.
And the vision isn't just about making the silicon itself, is it? NVIDIA is pushing this idea of physical AI using their Omniverse platform, these digital twins, helping huge manufacturers like Foxconn basically build virtual models of brand new U.S. factories, like that site they're looking at in Houston, running simulations before anyone even digs a hole.
What's really interesting there is the economics underneath it all. Fundamentally, this is an automation story. These new plants are incredibly capital intensive.
Right.
And they're designed from the ground up to be labor light. It's partly a response to ongoing labor shortages. So yes, it reindustrializes America in terms of tech capacity, but the whole job creation angle, that's much more uncertain. It leans heavily towards needing highly skilled engineers, not mass employment. Hold
on. If it's designed to be capital intensive, labor light, basically replacing people with robots from the start, isn't calling it reindustrialization kind of misleading? We're reindustrializing capital, maybe technology, but not necessarily jobs in the way people might think. Doesn't that undercut the political story?
It absolutely creates a critical disconnect. You've nailed it. The political talk is all about local jobs, bringing manufacturing back for the workers. The technical reality is about boosting productivity with fewer, very specialized people managing sophisticated machines. That tension. It's going to be really interesting to see how communities react when these massive new fabs and data centers actually land.
Okay, before we get into the frictions holding this back, we should mention this one. Pretty wild venture. Substrate. Peter Thiel's backing it. They just raised $100 million.
Right, the X-ray lithography play.
Exactly. Trying to challenge the very foundation of chip making. They want to basically displace ASML, the Dutch company that has a total monopoly on the EUV machines needed for the most advanced chips.
Substrate is swinging for the fences. They're trying to tackle one of America's biggest tech weak spots, depending on the Netherlands, and by extension, Taiwan, for this critical capability.
High risk, high reward.
Extremely high risk. The founder even admits most people think they'll fail. But the goal is nothing less than building a homegrown alternative to the most complex, important machine in the semiconductor world.
So we've got the pledges, the politics, the tech ambitions. Now let's get critical. Let's pressure test this against the 5 frictions. These are the realities that show reindustrialization is, well, more a long journey than a finished destination.
Let's do it. Friction number 1 starts with that phrase we keep hearing.
Yeah.
Made in America. We cheered that Arizona wafer.
Yeah.
But that's only part of the story.
Right. Our sources are clear. The really crucial, tricky steps, they still happen overseas. We're talking advanced packaging and getting good yields. That's mostly still happening in Taiwan.
Exactly. And advanced packaging isn't just, putting a chip in a plastic case. It's incredibly complex stuff, stacking multiple chips, memory, logic, connecting them in 3D to get more performance. Taiwan's mastery to that process, and especially getting high yields, meaning a high percentage of the finished packages actually work perfectly. That's the real bottleneck. That's the hardest part to replicate on shore.
And even if we could do the whole stack here, sovereignty isn't the same as autarky, right?
Yeah.
U.S. fabs will still need to import the super specialized tools and materials from global suppliers, ASML, Tokyo Electron in Japan.
Precisely. The U.S. is trying to make its supply chain more resilient, more diversified, but it's not trying to cut itself off completely. It can't, really.
Which is why maybe controlling the choke points, like packaging, is more realistic than aiming for total self-sufficiency.
That seems to be the more pragmatic view, yes.
Okay, friction number 2. This one's huge. Infrastructure. Specifically, the power grid. AI data centers. They are power hogs.
Unbelievable power hogs.
U.S. power use is projected to hit record highs starting in 2025, 2026, largely because of this. These places need massive amounts of energy that's cheap, reliable, what they call firm power, and ideally low carbon.
And here's where the policy gets really tangled. Jensen Huang might praise pro-energy policies, but the reality for AI data centers is they can't really rely on intermittent sources like wind and solar alone, even if they're clean.
Why not?
They need constant, firm power, always on, totally reliable. And often that means relying on things like natural gas plants to guarantee uptime, especially during peak demand or when renewables aren't generating.
So the friction is, if federal policies slow down the build-out of reliable, maybe clean, firm power sources, or make it harder to build new transmission lines,
then it becomes much, much harder and more expensive to actually power these giant new AI factories and data centers.
You end up with delays, higher costs, undermining the very projects the government is trying to champion.
Exactly. And we're seeing this play out already. Getting the power agreements and the transmission build is a multi-year slog. It often moves way slower than the corporate announcements.
Friction number 3. People. Talent. You can have the fanciest fab in the world, but you need people to run it. This whole build-out relies heavily on foreign engineers and skilled trades.
Absolutely critical. You need people who understand clean room protocols, advanced tool maintenance. These aren't just any construction jobs.
And we know, for example, that TSMC publicly blamed delays at their Arizona plant partly on a lack of skilled workers, didn't they?
They did. Yet at the same time, you have policies like the recent H-1B visa clampdown, or the fee shock, as some call it, plus other restrictions.
Which directly threaten the pipeline of the very people needed for these projects.
It's a fundamental contradiction. If you're trying to reindustrialize with massive construction, but you're simultaneously choking off the supply of specialized talent required.
Those policies are working against each other. You're basically guaranteeing delays and higher costs.
And it's not just PhD engineers either. It's specialized welders, pipe fitters, technicians, experienced in sterile environments. That specific skill set is scarce domestically. So the immigration squeeze poses a direct risk to the whole reshoring plan.
Okay, on to friction 4. The elephant in the room. China. Specifically, unsettled China market access. NVIDIA's sky-high valuation sort of assumes market stability, doesn't it? But that export control overhang hasn't gone away.
Not at all. Huang clearly wants Blackwell sales to China. It's a potentially gigantic market for them. But you have loud voices in Congress, in the national security community, warning that selling top-tier GPUs, even slightly modified ones, would basically erase the U.S. tech advantage in critical areas like military AI.
So that political reality, that clash between corporate growth and national security, it directly threatens the market stability baked into NVIDIA's share price.
It absolutely does. If Washington decides to draw a harder line to really cut off advanced GPU sales to China, the market impact for NVIDIA would be severe and immediate. It's a structural, almost existential risk to their current growth path.
And the debate hasn't settled because the stakes are just so incredibly high.
Precisely. It pits huge corporate interests against fundamental national security strategy.
And finally, friction 5. Let's circle back to that ambitious startup, Substrate. The friction here is that betting on a near-term lithography fix, a quick replacement for ASML, seems, well, highly unlikely.
Yeah, ASML isn't going to be knocked off its perch by a $100 million venture anytime soon.
Yeah.
Their EUV technology represents a decades-deep moat.
Decades?
Oh, yes. The physics involved are incredibly complex. Billions upon billions in R&D, supply chains that span the globe and took decades to perfect. Think about it.
Yeah.
Using powerful lasers to create plasma, bouncing extreme ultraviolet light off near-perfect mirrors, all inside a vacuum. It's an astonishing feat of engineering.
So the idea that a startup, however well-funded, can just replicate or leapfrog that quickly.
It's just extremely high risk. Betting America's reindustrialization strategy on a fast ASML competitor isn't realistic in the near term.
What's more plausible then?
Focusing on things we can influence sooner, like boosting domestic capacity for that advanced packaging we talked about, or diversifying the supply chain for the existing types of tools. Those are more practical levers than waiting for someone to rewrite the laws of physics and global supply chains in just a few years.
Okay. So we've walked through the narrative, the ambitions, and these 5 major frictions: packaging power, people, policy, and the physics of lithography. After all that, what's the bottom line for you, the listener? How do we separate the PR spin from the actual progress?
I think the core takeaway holds. Until all those pieces, the packaging, the power grid solutions, the talent pipeline, the policy alignment, until they truly line up and work together, reindustrialization is much more a direction we're heading in than a destination we've arrived at.
Right.
The progress is definitely real. You see steps being taken, but it's going to unfold over multi-year timelines, and it will remain deeply interconnected with global partners.
So, for you listening, you need some concrete things to watch, right? Actual markers that show real structural change is happening, not just another funding announcement or a photo op. What should we be keeping an eye on?
Okay, 5 key things. First, watch the TSMC Arizona ramp up very closely. Specifically, where is the final advanced packaging happening, not just the initial wafer production. That tells you if the really hard part is actually moving onshore.
Good one.
Second, look for utility deals. Are these new data centers and fabs successfully locking down firm, reliable power? Watch for announcements of new transmission lines being built, big demand response agreements, or major on-site power generation projects. That signals real progress with the utilities.
Makes sense. Third?
Give a close watch on export control signals out of Washington. Any clear decision from the White House or the Commerce Department about selling specialized versions of Blackwell chips to China that will instantly shape NVIDIA's market future and the whole geopolitical game.
Fourth marker.
Track the immigration rules. What happens long-term with the H-1B fees and restrictions? If those tougher rules stick, you should expect to see real, measurable delays and cost increases for these big construction projects because of talent shortages.
And number 5?
The most dramatic one. Substrate's first real demo. Ignore the funding news. Wait for independent benchmarks of an actual working prototype tool. That's the only thing that will tell us if they have even a remote chance of disrupting ASML's dominance. Anything less is just hype.
So it seems the future of U.S. manufacturing, especially in AI, means importing expertise, importing energy solutions, importing advanced tools, which raises a final question for you to think about. Does true American industrial sovereignty in this AI age mean achieving total manufacturing autarky, being completely self-sufficient? Or is the smarter, more viable strategy about controlling the crucial global choke points that remain things like advanced packaging, specialized machinery? That debate is happening right now, and the answer is going to shape the global economy for a long time.
That really is the core question. And the answer dictates whether NVIDIA's grand vision becomes reality or remains a very, very expensive dream.
Thanks for listening. Follow us for daily insights into world affairs, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.